Part 1, Learning the Law. The Institutions. The first 5 chapters of this book will acquaint you with the basics of legal reasoning. What goes on in the minds of lawyers will also fill in some likely blanks in your databanks. Oh, sure, law school isn't supposed to require any particular educational background. There's no such thing as a pre-law course of study, but law professors assume some background in political science and philosophy, even if they don't admit it. The first blanks we will fill in have to do with basic civics. Understanding law is difficult, but should not be mysterious. Laws and cases have little meaning without an appreciation for the processes that create them and make them work. Before they enter law school, most people think they have a pretty good idea of how government operates. Law school shows us how much we don't know about government in general and its effects on law in particular. Unfortunately, law school professors expect you to have acquired this knowledge somewhere else or to pick it up on the fly. That's not easy, and hence this first chapter. A word of warning at the outset: this stuff ain't sexy, but you can't find your way around the law without first touring its institutions. And this first chapter will serve as an introductory and relatively painless guide. We all know that the coordinate branches of national government enact, enforce, and decide the law. We've all learned the basic functions of each branch and recognize the separation of powers principle that frees them to operate autonomously. That's where simplicity ends. Sometimes the branches coexist peacefully and reinforce each other. At other times, the unitary entity we call government behaves like a newborn fowl, unable to synchronize its independently minded legs. The drafters of the U.S. Constitution hoped that the system of checks and balances they introduced would act like a set of hopples to ensure an orderly gait. But hopples work no better on noisy democratic governments than on confused young pacers. And when government breaks stride, the effect on law and lawmaking can get rather naughty. Compounding the complexity is the fact that the federal government represents at most only half of the story, sharing power with the federal legislature, executive, and judiciary, or the independent regimes that govern the individual states. The interrelationship among all of these somewhat unruly government entities gets every bit as intricate and testy as the associations among their individual components. At times, it appears that states and the federal bureaucracy act as individual sovereign bodies, each within its own separate sphere. In other contexts, a two-step hierarchy seems more accurate, with the federal component exercising a dominant supervisory function. In this chapter, we'll explore some of these interactions and their effects on the creation, application, and interpretation of law. We focus primarily on the federal legislature and executive, since state versions are ordinarily quite similar and don't mingle much with their federal counterparts. However, significant federal-state overlap occurs in the judicial context. State and federal courts are highly interdependent, and we discuss their relationship in Section 1.3.